Great. Thank you very much, Chris. So again, a very warm welcome and a big thank you to Mike Adams for being our guest speaker today. So Mike, I've got 3 questions, please, as a way of introducing you, and then you'll be taking us through the rest of the session. So first question, what did you want to be when you were young? That inevitable question, what did you want to be?
Well, thank you, Sarah, and welcome to everyone. And I'm just sitting there looking at the chat and thinking, my goodness me, there's about 32 other people who probably should be sitting in this seat talking about what they did this summer. But I guess the answer to your question really relates to what I did this summer, which was watch a lot of the European Championship football, because when I was young, my absolute aspiration was to be a football commentator. And for those of you who don't know me, I have no arms, but when I was young, I did have a contraption that used to hold my deodorant can, so I could put deodorant on independently, which was incredibly important then. And today, as I sit in the spare room, absolutely boiling hot, it's incredibly important now. But I worked out that what I could do is that I was going to be able to take the deodorant can out of this contraption and put the microphone in it. And that meant I was going to be able to be a football commentator.
Great, very inventive. And I think you're the first member of the Purpose Collective community who said it was his aspiration, football commentator. And so I don't know if your response to the next question will be related or not. Let's see. Who is your purpose hero?
Well, given that it's all focused on purpose, I might be unique again in saying the person who is my purpose hero, actually, their name has been utterly erased from my memory. But I'll tell you why, because once I'd realised I wasn't going to be a football commentator, I had this, I always wanted to lead a business. And as a young disabled person, the one thing I did not want to do was have a job that had anything to do with disability. And I didn't want to be defined in my whole career by what I looked like and who I was. So I raged against the machine and decided that whatever I did, I was going to do something, nothing to do with disability. And I got an interview as at 21 with a big retail organization that will remain nameless, to be part of their graduate leadership program. And I cannot begin to tell you how excited I was. This was what I wanted to do. Even at that age, I'd never prepared so much for an interview in all my life. And I knew that that is where I wanted to go. And I walked into the room. I'll never forget it. There was a panel of 7, which was big back in those days and quite daunting for a quite young individual. And the chair, she asked me my name and asked me why I'd applied. I thought, oh, that's a nice intro in. And I got about 30 seconds in and she just stopped. She said, look, I'm absolutely stopping the interview. She said, look, you know, and we know that you're never going to get this job. So there is no point carrying on this interview. So we are going to stop it now. And she looked me in the eye and she said, but you must be used to disappointment. And it was that moment that she gave me the absolute purpose that has driven the rest of my life and my working career. So not necessarily the way in which I wanted to find a purpose, not the one I expected, but the rest, as they say, is history. So I'm really, but you appreciate why probably I can't remember her name.
Yes, I do. Thank you for sharing that. And it's, as you say, it's not a purpose hero in the conventional sense, maybe more of a purpose anti-hero. But thank you for sharing that key moment going back to when you were 21. And I'm now even more intrigued to find out more about purple, and we will come to that. But final question from me for the moment. Just tell us a little bit about your journey to become a CEO.
Yeah, so at the time, I was president of my students' union, which is a fantastic grounding, really, in terms of leadership that enabled me to drink a lot at the same time. So it had benefits on both sides. And then because of what had happened at that interview, a kind of serendipity, call it what you like, the university was looking for their first ever disability officer. There had been a big initiative in higher education, and they asked me whether I'd take it on. And so going from I'd never do anything in terms of disability, I became the first disability officer. And within 18 months, I kind of worked out that disability could not forever be about ramps and lifts, incredibly important, but also had to be about what did access mean within the classroom, within the kind of within the kind of sandwich placements, with every aspect of learning and teaching. And very quickly, I went to the Vice Chancellor and said, look, I think we need to set up a research centre on disability to look at all these kind of issues. And it was the emergence of online digital learning. It just had started. And I always tell the story. He said, yeah, Mike, I will absolutely support this, but I'm going to name your centre. And I said, that's absolutely fine. And he said, it's going to be the Centre for Research and Policy in Disability. And we don't have time for you to work it out, but actually the acronym was CRAP-ID, which I thought was quite ironic. And we set it up. At the time, Australia were way ahead of us in terms of higher education and accessibility. So I went to Australia and I went and learned about absolutely how they did it, and then brought it back, and then took on a role of higher education, so responsible for disability in universities in England and Northern Ireland, actually. And at the time there was 133 of them, and my claim to fame is I visited 91 of those to just look at the different kind of provision. I realized that, you know, if I was going to get anywhere, I needed to go and get an MBA, and I did that part-time alongside. And then I went and worked for the Disability Rights Commission, because in the nicest sense, I was pretty good on stage, giving it some, but I knew I needed to do the hard yards, the behind the scenes. So I went to the Disability Rights Commission for their last 2 years and was director of strategy. The most boring, dry job. And, you know, I stood behind the curtains as all these people around me were on stage, and it was probably a brilliant grounding for me. And then I returned to my roots as a user-led organisation, a disability organisation, and over a period of time took it from being a charity to then being a CIC, and then to being a kind of private sector organisation, which is Purple as it is today.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Mike. I am feeling truly inspired already about some of the journey that you've been on there. I'm sure there's much more you could have shared as well. But let me hand over to you now to take us through your session about changing the conversation. The floor is open. Thank you, Mike.
No, thank you, Sarah. And I'm just conscious of time, and I understand that actually what works really well with these sessions is to have the breakout room and the discussion. So I'm going to talk even faster than I normally do to kind of cram it in. But so the purpose of Purple, absolutely crystal clear, which is to change the disability conversation. Really clear on that. And that is shifting the dial around disability being seen as an issue about welfare, an issue about vulnerable people, an issue about charity and the responsibility of government, whether that's local government or national government, and moving it to seeing disability as one about value, one about choice, and one about opportunity for all. And that's about disabled people, and that's about businesses as well. And I always talk about the supply and demand equation. It's probably because my degree was in economics and it kind of sat with me, but in many ways you've got the demand, which is the 14.1 million disabled people in the UK, but you can't raise their aspirations without taking the supply with you, and that's organizations, because otherwise you raise expectations that then are not met, and that causes more problems. So we set out really as a disability organization to be inclusive by being as welcoming to organizations wherever they were on the journey alongside disabled people. And today, we still support disabled people, we support organisations, and our mission is the synergy and bringing those two audiences together. And I think what crystallised for me was the fact that I've got 4 children and I've got twins who are 2 years old. And a number of weeks ago, I came downstairs and one of the twins, who will remain nameless again, had taken my mobile phone, had got the stylus that I used and was operating my phone with the stylus in her mouth. And actually, because that is what she had known and that is what she had seen, and to her, that was normal. And so when we talk about changing the conversation, actually, if we make that normal over a period of time, we don't need to change the conversation because the conversation will be permanent. And therefore, what we need to do is look at it in the round and go, well, hang on a minute, how can we change the curriculum on all these things that matter so we have a permanent change? So what matters, and we set a 10-year challenge because even I know things can't happen overnight. So, when the twins are 12, how are we going to know that the conversation around disability is permanent? And that's the purpose. And I have learned LinkedIn because I think it's incredibly important about reaching out to new audiences. And I gave a picture of my twins on their 2nd birthday. We were at a farm and it's a picture taken by my partner of us walking together. And one of the twins was holding my finger and then holding the other twin. And it was a wonderful moment. It was a wonderful picture. But I was saying to the audience, if you just pan back from that, what you don't see is all the people in the park just staring and all the people making comments around everything. And I was saying, we will know we've been successful in 10 years' time if we are simply ignored. And being ignored then becomes the goal and the mission, because we know we will just be part of an integrated world where it won't matter if we are disabled. And, again, that is the purpose of my 10 years in work, to get us to that position. So key things you need to know about disability. Well, we know the international sign. Worldwide, we've got an international audience today, and I bet you've all seen the symbol, the international symbol of the wheelchair, wherever you are in the world. That represents 8% of the global population. So in one way, it's really raised profile of disability, and 2, it's reinforced the perception that disabled people are wheelchair users, blind people and deaf people, where actually up to 80% of disabled people have hidden disabilities. So they will walk into a room, they'll walk into a shop, they'll walk into a business, and you won't necessarily know they have additional needs, and you will make assumptions that we really need to change. They have disabled people have a combined spending power of £274 billion, for which, and I'll come back to this in the second half, for which only 10% of businesses have any strategy to access that market. 75% of disabled people have left or walked away from a shop or website due to poor accessibility or poor customer service. It's an easy fix, you know, and in this world of post-pandemic, can any business just afford to allow 22% of the population just to walk away? I don't think so. We know at the other end of the spectrum, in England, 1 in 6 of the deaths through COVID were related to disabled people. So we know that they were disproportionately impacted by COVID, and we know one of the biggest issues was lack of accessibility online for basic guidance, information, buying of products, booking slots. That in 2021, you know, only 3% of the top 1 million websites met basic accessibility needs. But we know at the other end of the spectrum that disabled people are the most loyal to their brands. So normally, if you get a disabled people linked to a brand, they stay there for life. And the other important point really is to say that 50% of people, so you could take a marker, 50% of you on the call today either have a disabled relative or someone in your close network who's disabled. So there's a resonance to this issue. And when I talk about disability and I talk about definitions, I'm talking about people with dyslexia. I am talking about people with mental health. I am talking about people who have cancer or who have recovered from cancer. So we need to rethink what we understand about disability and who is disabled, not because we want to label them, but because we need to understand this group of 22% of the UK population that with some adjustments actually could make a huge contribution to our lives and to our communities and to our overall society. And I think that kind of leads me into the first question, Chris, is taking all that on board, you know, what is your lived experience of disability? Can you think of someone that you've come into contact with, thinking about my definition, who has a disability? What is the way that they've been perceived, either by you or by someone else, you know, and in terms of behaviours, perceptions, assumptions that have been made? You know, have you seen that person as a kind of vulnerable person for which you need to provide additional support? You know, has there been an element of pity, or have you absolutely seen them as a kind of absolute equal that just needs kind of adjustments made? And just think about that, and just be honest, you know, because we need to change perceptions, and we just need to kind of be honest about where we are as a society in relation to disability. So that is the exam question, and I'll hand back to you, Chris, to kind of put us into groups.
Okay, so we've got chat room set up. So it's groups of 3 or 4. We'd encourage everybody, if you can, to switch on your cameras. We're going to open the rooms now, and we're going to have 10 minutes for the conversation. So if you're not able to join a chat room, you'll be able to stay in the central room with us. But this is the bit of the session that people always enjoy the most, even when we've got an inspirational speaker like Mike. So I'm going to open the chat rooms. You should get a message pop up, and we shall see you all back in 10 minutes. Okay, we're back with you, Mike. You're back in charge.
Brilliant, and thank you. And I am going to be very brief in this second section so we can have 5-10 minutes breakout. So I talked a little bit about through the lens of disabled people, and now I just want to touch briefly on disability through the lens of businesses and organisations and the level of responsibilities. And at one level, you know, there is the 274 billion purple pound, and only 10% of organisations have a disability strategy. So it seems at one level, this is an easy win. I can just see a conversation in a boardroom that says, look, we've identified this new market. There's 14 million people, 274 billion pounds it's worth. Actually, it's only 10% of businesses are doing anything about it, and the solution to accessing that market and getting brand loyalty is really straightforward. I defy any board really to turn around and go, no, we don't want to do that. And so there is the commercial driver that is important around disability, and also the social impact. And I think one of the legacies of COVID is that there is a recognition that brands need to demonstrate social impact. And we've seen that by investors. We've seen that by senior management teams recognizing that the greatest challenge is well-being of their staff if they've been furloughed or they've been locked in their spare room at home and coming back, and well-being links to performance. And actually it's been thrust as a huge kind of HR organizational issue that needs to be addressed. And I work with an organization who's corporate that's gone on the journey around disability, and I joined their chief executive on a virtual session about 3 or 4 months ago. Thank goodness it's Friday is the session, and he stands up and he does 10 minutes and then takes questions. And normally in these virtual things, everyone stays on mute and just uses the chat function. And he talked about their journey they were been on disability and why it was so important, and working with us and stuff. And then he opened it up to questions, and there was this silence. And then one person came off mute and said, look, I've been in this organization 15 years. I never thought there would be a day when I say this, but I'm now telling everyone that I've got a mental health issue. But the way the chief exec and the way the organization's going, I feel comfortable in telling people. So I'm telling people. And they came off, and 30 seconds later, someone else came off, and someone said, I'm dyslexic, and I go home every night and do an extra hour and a half because that's my coping strategy. But I want to tell everyone today. And within 10 minutes, 4 people from across that organization had disclosed their visible impairment and disability. Because they felt they were able to, because the culture of the organization was changing. And they are going to be the greatest kind of marketeers, both within the organization and elsewhere. So actually it's really important. We can all do something about it. So my second quick challenge was, with purpose, what is the 1 or 2 things that you as individuals can take away from this session, which will either support a disabled employer or disabled customer related to your business, and something for which you have responsibility and are able to influence?
So I'm going to open the rooms. You'll be back in the same groups, and we'll see you in another 10 minutes.
And a question to you, Chris, is if you are able to capture the chat in some way and get it over to me, I will incorporate anonymously into a LinkedIn post in order that we can reach out to an audience about what we have discussed today. So it's really important. And I think my 1-2 message really, one is rethink, redefine what you mean by disabled people and your approach. And we need to redefine what accessibility means in 2021, and it's not just about the built environment, but increasingly it's about the online environment and what unlocks the door, whether it's staff, whether it's who else is giving people the confidence to engage with disabled people, which doesn't cost any money at all, but can make an absolute huge difference to this agenda.
Great.
Excellent. We can share the chat, Mike, so we will send that across to you, and we'll share it with everybody that's been here.
Before everyone leaves, we are going to do 2 things. The usual screenshot. If it's your first time, you need to basically smile to turn your camera, even if you hated the session, which I doubt. It's very, very inspiring session. Thank you, Mike, again. We're going to take 2 screenshots because I have 2 screens here. So you need to smile twice. 1, 2, 3. And then the next one. 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much. And now, just a reminder, this was the first conversation about purpose after the summer break. Hope you had an awesome summer and that you missed us as well. And we really missed having these sessions and seeing you here. So we are going to have 2 more sessions shortly. Like the next one will be on the 23rd of September with our host, Tim Elliott, which is here. Can you say hi, Tim? Yeah, okay. And your session is going to be about
purpose-driven storytelling, really. So the relationship between story and purpose and how we get our important messages out into the world.
Brilliant, brilliant. So looking forward to that one. And we also have a masterclass on the 30th of September. I'm going to post the link in the chat as well, so you can see all the different events that we have. Connect with us on LinkedIn. You know, there's a group. You can be part of that, of course. Just reach out to us. And looking forward to see you all on the 23rd and maybe hopefully on the 30th as well. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you for coming.
Yeah. And again, thank you, Mike, and everyone. If you unmute, feel free to say thank you to Mike and to your chat room colleagues. And we hope to see you in a couple of weeks' time.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining.